Hey, it's Mike with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Tuesday. It is December 8th. This will be our chart lesson for the day. And we had a nice uptrend today. What looked like was going to start out as maybe another typical range kind of day with a lot of sideways stuff. We ended up with a fairly nice trend here. We had one leg up, then we corrected, and then we started another leg up. Of course, you always want to look for that measured leg up. There's leg one, and then leg two started here, and you can see we went a little bit further with that and then corrected and even went a little higher than that. But we ended up just kind of ranging in that same price level, and that's fairly typical. But this was a much better day considering what we have been getting. It was a lot easier to trade. You had a clear trend. And even though it doesn't necessarily look like it, this is a really strong trend. When you start to see these moves up where your corrections are really relatively shallow and you get lots of dojis and stems on both sides and they just keep climbing higher with very shallow corrections, that's a strong trend. And so if you see one like that, it won't always look like a strong trend, but it is. So just make sure you learn to recognize those. But anyway, I'm going to back out here. You can see it's basically an uptrend day for the most part. I'm going to back out. We'll go through the trades, and then we'll wrap today up. Okay, 7 o'clock came right up through here. And you do push through the EMA and pull back and get a higher low here, but this next bar didn't break above. Actually, it did break above, but there's a little bit of stem there, and you got a doji, and then this one's got, or actually that's not a doji, but you got a lot of body, then another body, and if the next one doesn't take off, you're really going to end up with congestion there, and that makes it a little harder to enter that. It is right at the key entry point, but on a reversal like this, I want to see a failed second entry, and we just don't get that there. It's a first entry long, and it's just a first entry short. So it's not a second entry long, it's not a failed second entry short. There's just nothing that really says, hey, you want to go long there. Of course, yes, it works and it goes higher, but it's not an entry we want to take. And then we pull back and you get a first entry, and then you get a second entry here. But again, notice 1, 2, by the time that closes, you got 3 bars stacked up. A couple of them don't have any bodies. It looks congested. We aren't really back to the EMA yet. The downtrend line is still in play. We actually get a break here, and you see what happens. That's what happens in congestion. Prices break out and fail. Then they break out the other side and fail. And notice we kind of get back in there again and before the prices go higher. So that's just not a very good setup. So you just had to kind of be patient. And then finally we're working up here, and you get a pullback first entry, and then you bounce off the EMA again. And if it breaks higher here above this little 2 matching, now it's a second entry long. And we're actually looking for a measured move right here, similar to that, which you can see we basically hit that to the tick over here before we sold off. So, and this is at the midline. You would draw this trend channel. It has this, what this is a spiking channel. And so there's a 2-tiered channel here. It's really not confirmed yet, but you're just be playing this minor one. That's the first break, and then you get a second entry long. You expect prices to make a new high there, and you figure maybe we make a measured move here. Prices work up, and you really make a triple high here, but there's no reason to go short yet. You can see prices are playing off this upper trend channel, so we're maybe going back here. But notice what happened. Prices actually make a double top. Then you get a first entry, which really creates a triple top. So there's somewhat of a second entry here, and prices actually came down. They made that low right there. They came back once, they went higher, came back again. So it's almost a a double test. It really is a double test, but it's almost a double test of this level, which is even stronger. That's basically a triple test is what you would call that. And really what you end up playing is it's just congestion here. So the key is, do you have enough room to get out before you get back to this high? Because you can just see that little range working across there. At this point, it looked like these were the highs and these were the lows. And so the key would be, do I have enough room to get out there? And if you can get in there, you might even let it break higher and then drop a limit order a tick or so back. Just whatever it takes to get out. And if you got that, you can enter there. If not, I'd probably wait. And of course, it does break out here and fail, but you get a lower high here, but you can't go short right into that, plus this possible trend line. And of course, it bounces. And you get a higher low here, but look at the congestion, and it's back inside that range. Is this a midline or is that the high? Turns out I think it's the midline because we go back up there and find resistance again. And you don't know which one of these is going to win. It's just hard to know what's going on across here. So just stay out of that. And then finally you get a break and you bounce off this low. And here you can clearly see that low, and you test it once. You come back and test it twice. They're spread out. It's two separate tests. And a fairly nice bullish bar with plenty of room to get out up here where the highs are. So I like going long there. And we may go make a new high here, which we do. And then it sells off. I don't see any reason to go short. And then we got this working down. And you get a close outside new low. And then you get a higher low that actually breaks lower and turns up with plenty of room back. You know we're going to come back and test this. And probably the midline, and they're both in the same place. As long as you got enough room there, take that trade. And you might catch that important low. And in fact, you do here. You hear me talk about that a lot on these breakouts, on these failures. A lot of times these will be important highs or important lows. And this one's really congestive right across here. And you do have a triple test, and it breaks higher and turns down, but it doesn't go out the other side. It leaves a little stem, and there's not much room back to the EMA or to test this, and you might get a second leg up. So that's the reason I didn't mark that. I meant to talk about that, but I skipped over it. But if you catch this one, you catch an easy runner, and this is the one time in a range like this, if I've traded, I'm going to always keep a runner, and it's on these failed breakouts. And look at it go. And if you catch that one trade, you don't need anything else today. And you pretty much could get all of this move. As long as this, even if you just played out this spike in original small term micro channel here, but really there's a spike in a bigger channel, and this is just a smaller pattern within it. But even if you just wrote out these two, 3680 to somewhere up in here, that's a 10-point move easy. But you could have got a lot more out of that, really. Depending on how you manage your runner. How much room you want to give it, and how much risk you want to take once you've already got 8 or 10 points in your hand. But anyway, we come up here, we get an overshoot, which will probably lead to a break. There is a second entry right there. But I don't like that. The signal bar is not perfect. It's mostly bullish, but we're kind of going sideways. So when we get that third test and it breaks, the question here that I had, I don't know if this broke lower or higher first. I'm not sure. So if it broke higher and turned down when it went back out, enter, or if it broke lower and then turned up when it went back out, enter. However that sets up. And that's the reason I marked this green, because I wasn't sure which way this one played. But it's a triple test no matter what. I just wouldn't wait till this bar closed and go long way up here with this being a big doji, because it definitely looks congestive, and you don't have enough room to get out. You're right in here at the high. So don't enter up there. But if you can enter with it going past this bar right here on the engulfing portion, then you're okay. There's a higher low here, but you can't enter that close to the highs. Not that far away from the EMA. And of course we come back, and there is a hidden second entry here. It's a fairly bullish bar. It really does kind of confirm this trend line. we do have a close outside and a new low here, but I would wait on a higher low. You might take that trade if you want to be a little aggressive, but I'd wait on a higher low, which comes here, and then it didn't take off. It comes back, and then it gives you the failure. So if you didn't enter on this one, definitely enter when it breaks higher here, and then it comes back, and it really, I don't have the line on there, but it makes another little double test right across there. And you can see that, and it's still holding inside that trend line. So you may take that trade. Again, it's aggressive. There's not a lot of room. I think there's enough room to get out before that high, but it's still a lot of congestion right there. But this is an uptrend, and this is a strong trend, and this trend line is still holding, and it's just proving itself every time it comes back to it. What it is we aren't really taking off here. So most of your smart traders are waiting for more confirmation, and you don't really get it on this bar. But when it comes back here again, you got some pretty good confirmation, and notice it really kind of takes off then. People realize, hey, we're not going lower, so we're obviously going higher. And I mean, we tried 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times to go lower and couldn't do it. We still closed inside that trend line every single time. So it runs up, you can't enter in any of these, and then it comes back. First entry comes back, and it's starting to look like we may close outside. But that's a second entry long, small bar, 4 ticks, relatively bullish. Take that trade. It's just, it's very low risk. And if it fails, you're not going to lose a whole lot. So I like that trade. Then we start working back. You get a first entry and you get a second entry here, which that signal bar is no good. And you see what would have happened to you. And we just start going sideways. And for that reason, I don't even like this little failed break lower here below those matching lows, because all of those dojis and everything's below the EMA. We could break higher and turn down here. And there is, I don't have it on here, but there is that little work move down too. So this is mostly all sideways, and really, you could really argue that this is all still part of that. And so with all that congestion right in, it's been turning down off that EMA, and when it did get through, it turned down off the midline. So I just think that's too risky. It works, and we did test that multiple times, but we tested that right across the highs multiple times too. And if you've got a higher low here, maybe, but you just don't get it. It just takes off. And so now you got a break of the trend channel and a new high. You've got a failed breakout here that's probably going to fail. So if you get a lower high way away from the EMA like this, we're probably going to come back to it. I like that for a short. And that's a nice move back down. And you're just for basically all you're looking for here is a scalp back to the EMA. But sometimes, like in this case, you get more. So that's the beauty of these breakouts. Keep a runner on this one just in case. It turns out to be a major high. It does turn out to be the high for the day. It doesn't turn out to be one of those major ones where you get a big move down. But still, there's several points there. 4 or 5 points. That's an easy runner if you catch it. You actually get a failed second entry long here, but you got to go short right into the EMA, and you don't want to risk that there. So if you don't enter on where there's plenty of room back, just sit tight. And that took you into 2 o'clock where there's just nothing left there. So anyway, and that pretty much is going to do it for today. And you can see the measured move was right in here, and that's where we end up spending the rest of the day, right along that price level. We really kind of bounced off of it the rest of the day. I did want to, I talked a little bit about the second entry counter yesterday, and a couple of you made a comment about you saw something where the count was off or something. But one of the issues we're having is with engulfing bars. And we just haven't been able to find a workaround for when you get an engulfing bar of how to make that count. And so really once you see an engulfing bar, you'll have to, um, it'll throw it off just for the next few bars, and then the count will get back on. So if you see an engulfing bar, and really that is a more advanced type trade that will throw people off anyway. So we're not going to worry too much about that. We'll probably just explain how to handle that and not spend much more time, because we just hadn't been able to find a way to account for it. And maybe there is a way, and we'll figure it out later, and we'll update the indicator if we do. But I'm still testing it. I want to test it another day or two before I put it up, because bunch of you have asked about it, and we'll get it up as soon as I'm confident that it's working properly. But I want to test it a few days and go through all the of course, they've been testing it for a while and they feel pretty confident, but if I'm going to put it up on my site, I want to test it and make sure that we got all the bugs worked out of it first, or at least the ones we can. And but really, the only purpose this thing is going to serve is for newbies that are having a hard time learning basic second entries. It'll really help you with that. It won't find this hidden second entries. It won't, if you got an engulfing bar, it won't account for that. But those are all more advanced things, and I think most newbies are better off just to forget about those for now anyway. And then once you got a clear understanding of second entries, you really need to take this indicator off and quit using it, and then learn to spot these other things too. So it's just a learning tool, and it's not something you're going to keep on your chart that's going to show you all these hidden second entries and special second entries that are created by one bar, because sometimes you get a second entry that creates all on one bar. In other words, prices will be moving up here, and then you'll make this high, and then prices will shoot down and create a second entry, and then go back up and make a higher high, and then come back down and make on the next bar, maybe make a higher low. And so it kind of creates it all on one bar. Maybe I didn't explain that right. It's hard to explain. If I see one, I'll show it to you. But sometimes you get a move all in one bar. It creates a second entry with just one bar if it's engulfing. And that's more advanced anyway, so most of the newbies that are trying to learn second entries shouldn't be trading those anyway. So, but I think this is one right here. Notice we're moving up right here, and you get a first entry short. And then we broke higher right there, and then turned back down and went out. So that engulfing bar creates a second entry all in one bar, because it went higher. It has to go higher and then come back down. So that's a great example. Let me make it a little bigger so you can see that. And that would throw the count off right here as well. Actually, it doesn't break lower now that I made it bigger. But that's what it would look like. Notice we're working up, we're working up, we're working up, and you got a first entry short. When this bar right here broke lower, actually we got the first entry short right there, and you're working down, and then you went higher again and came back down. It's still a second entry when it breaks lower because it made a higher low. But sometimes it will go all the way out on the same bar, and so that's still a second entry short because it broke higher first before it went lower. So that's what I was trying to explain, and that would be a second entry short if this broke lower. It's still a second entry regardless, but if it had broke through on this same bar, it would have been a second entry when it broke below this bar instead of when it broke below the low of this bar. But they're matching there, so I hope that's clear. If it doesn't make sense, don't worry yourself with it too much, because it's just a little more advanced. And once you understand second entries and what we're doing, most of that stuff will come to you a little easier. So, and please don't send me emails asking me about it to explain it more for you, because if you don't understand it at this point, it's probably too advanced for you. And I don't want to answer 500 emails trying to explain it. So forgive me for that, but I can't, that's what usually happens when I start trying to describe something like this. I'll get 50 or 60 emails all asking, can I tell them more about that? And I can't do that by email, unfortunately. It's just too much for me. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.